On the surface, Doom Episode 4 Thy Flesh Consumed has the same exact gameplay loop as every Doom game made prior to Doom 3. You run around multiple levels, game-ending demons with whatever jibbing tools you have at your disposal, while trying to resource manage mindfully, because you'll never really know when your next batch of bonus health is going to come in handy. Yeah, sure, you can just instantly pick up whatever health pickup you see fit, but the max health cap in Doom is 100% for medkits and stim packs, but you could also use health bonuses and soul spheres to boost your total health count up to the real HP cap of 200%, meaning that waiting until you're at 100% before picking up any of these blue items is highly incentivized. Same principle applies for armor pickups. Ah, jeez, not even a few minutes into the video and I already lost my train of thought. I think we should start from the beginning. After the absolute breakthrough window success of the first Doom game in late 1993, and after the release of the follow-up game, Doom 2 Hell on Earth, a year later in 1994, the guys over at id Software knew that they had to do at least one more thing before switching gears over to the development of this new fully 3D game called Quake. You might have not heard of it. So the way that the original Doom was distributed in the 90s, you basically had to call id Software's phone number to get some floppy disks for the other two episodes Doom had to offer.
Holy shit!
This was done so that id Software could receive the most amount of earnings for every sale made on the game. However, this seemed like a bit of an archaic practice by 1995, so around April of that year, id Software finally decided to release a boxed version of the game via retailers and the like, that version of the game being, quote-unquote, the ultimate Doom. The version of the game that most people are familiar with, due to it being the version that gets redistributed throughout the years, and the one that contains 9 new maps under the title Episode 4, Thy Flesh Consumed. Episode 4 was created by a talented team of 5 map designers, among them was John Romero, which I only really mentioned sparingly in the last Doom review that I did, and then American McGee, which is someone that I don't even think I really brought up all that much in the past, but from what I can gather, he got his start doing tech support work and playtesting for Doom 2, and then he went on to make a couple of games later on. One of them I've been ruminating on whether or not I should review on this channel. As to which one? Well, not like I'm gonna tell you that. Of course, those two dudes aren't literally everyone who worked on Episode 4, it's just some of the more recognizable names, which isn't to imply that the contributions of the other map designers aren't important at all. All of the levels in Thy Flesh Consumed do a good job at having something that makes them stand out, and a lot of my issues with them have more to do with me than anything else. The tricky part in reviewing something like Episode 4 is that I'm not really sure whether or not I should judge the maps from the perspective of our current year, or if I should be judging them by 1995 standards. Maybe a little bit of both would do. I'll be playing this episode with roughly the exact same rule set that I played with in my last Doom review, with the difficulty set to ultra-violence and compatibility settings set to Doom Strict. The only real difference between the rule set in my last Doom review and this one being that I'm going to be adding one more little mod into the game. It's purely a cosmetic mod, much like the transparent HUD mod I mentioned in my last Doom review. This mod I'm talking about essentially takes the generic Doom 2-esque intermission screens and overhauls them to look more in line with the You Are Here style intermission from Doom's first 3 episodes. I did this to give Episode 4 Thy Flesh Consumed a little bit more original Doom vibes rather than Doom 2 Hell on Earth vibes. Also, the last thing that I want to mention before we begin is that you might have noticed that I've been calling it Episode 4 a bunch more than I've been calling it Thy Flesh Consumed. Well, this is due to the fact that, I have a really hard time pronouncing thigh flesh consumed when randomly placing it in the middle of whatever sentence I'm saying. I get that id Software were trying to be cute by naming episode 4 and the levels with it after various lines from the Bible, and I'll admit, these level names do go pretty hard. But I don't know why thigh flesh consumed is just such a tongue twister to me. But let's just keep it simple and call it episode 4. I want to keep things simple, because the very first level, E4M1, is anything but. The level's name is Hell Beneath, which is a subtle reference to me being beneath the skill level necessary to get through this one unscathed. What makes this level difficult isn't necessarily the map design itself, it's actually pretty tame compared to some of what's in store in the later levels. It's more so the enemy teleports combined with the severe lack of health pickups, only really being 9 health bonuses on Ultra Violence difficulty. I'd like to think that I know this level pretty well. I even did a playthrough with a controller based off of the Sega Saturn controller that 8-Bit Do released. I played with the Doom GBA control scheme on that controller, and you could probably tell that it was certainly one of the experiences ever. Last thing I'll mention about Hell Beneath is that it was developed by American McGee. And being that it was done by him, he put this neat little 9-inch nails logo as a secret in the level. I only really captured it for a few seconds in my footage though, because I didn't want to stick around for the demons teleporting around me. Perfect Hatred. Honestly, this map isn't even all that difficult. It really just comes down to okay, I'll concede. Perfect Hatred, despite the amount of times that I've already played through this level in the past, still gives me a run for my money. There's this line def in the lava room where you have to walk over it to trigger this doorway to open, because it's the only way out of the lava room if you fall down into the pit. Why couldn't it be an obvious switch? Did Romero really have to make something that stupidly cryptic? But no, it just has to be this dumb triangle area that most players would accidentally bump into and not even realize that it opens this door. This section in particular is a complete slog too, and gives me Slaw of Despair flashbacks that I'd rather not have. This was by far the section of the map that gave me the most trouble, and maybe most of that could have been easily avoided if I just restarted the level, but nah, I honestly really didn't feel like doing that.
Yes, I cheated, and I'm okay with that.
Did I mention that this level is home to the most amount of Barons of Hell in any level in this entire game? Also, in a 1998 Doom World interview, John Romero admits that this entire level only took him about 6 hours to make. So I kind of have a hard time critiquing this map too much, because if someone honestly gave me a 6-hour deadline to make a decent Doom map, I think the result would be less than stellar. Near the level's exit, there's the cyber demon that you can telefrag by jumping into the secret teleporter that kills both the cyber demon and gives you the BFG. After you get the BFG secret, the rest of episode 4 becomes much easier from here. And no, I didn't forget the secret exit to the bonus level. I'll get to talking about that later. Sever the Wicked is an interesting map to dissect, primarily because it doesn't really follow a lot of the map design trends from the first 3 episodes, which makes sense when you consider that episode 4 of Doom was made after Doom 2. Thus, some of the map design is a lot more ambitious and more vertical, at least compared to the original Doom trilogy. And I think that really shines in this room near the start of the level where you have 2 staircases with one going upstairs and one going downstairs. And to my knowledge, I can't really think of any architecture from the original Doom level lineup that's like that. Maybe you can make an argument that the twin stairs from E1M2 resemble these stairs? Not really. In my humble opinion, however, I believe that this is the first level in the episode where the skybox really starts to shine. The vista above resembling a cozy sun-baked evening in the middle of June, looking like how a nice buttery dinner roll that just came out of the oven during Thanksgiving tastes. Point is, I like the skybox. I think it's what gives episode 4 its identity in the grand scheme of things. Now, shifting the topics a little, despite the huge amount of monsters in this level, I think the reason why it doesn't feel nearly as difficult as the first two levels is because this map is generally more open-ended, meaning that I can comfortably take on each group of demons at my own pace, where in Hell Beneath and Perfect Hatred, I felt like my back was consistently against the wall, quite literally at certain points. Like a lot of other maps in Thigh Flesh Consumed, it's packed to the brim with hit scan enemies and areas to get game ended in if you're not paying attention. However, I do really like the architecture of this level, with it being kind of separated into halves. I mean, it's not really separated. There's several bridges between the gaps as you progress through the level, but it's just a really neat little Doom level with both open areas and tight corridors. Next map, Unruly Evil. Okay, so this is one of the more forgotten about levels in this episode, and with good reason. The starting location is just bland, and the brown textures. Lots and lots of brown and gray textures. Did American McGee forget which id Software game he was making levels for? But in his defense, upon closer inspection, the wall texture and floor texture in the starting room are actually not the same. Beyond that, there's really not much of significant note in this level. It's pretty short if you know what you're doing, and honestly, I'm not sure why they didn't make this E4 M1. It feels more like a traditional level 1 type of experience, not nearly as gut-punching as the first two levels. There's this part near the end where you can't interact with this lift like you would any other. Instead, you have to walk all the way to the other side here to use this switch to bring the short lift down. And honestly, I don't get it. Why not just make the lift interactable and skip the switch hitting altogether? And if you could forgive me for my armchair map designer tips for a moment, I really want to emphasize how dumb this one part of the level really is. Like, come on, even I could have handled creating this part better. And just a reminder, my Doom levels that I've made suck harder than a femboy vampire. The level, however, ends shortly after this section, so I guess it's really not all that bad. They Will Repent. Honestly, it's a pretty fun romp through marbled up hell corridors. It's a map that was designed by Tim Willits with his sister assisting in the making of the original map's layout, and for what it's worth, it's pretty refreshing. There's this Caco demon out in the starting area window, and I don't know, I just thought it was worth mentioning. You can even hear it as soon as the level starts. I honestly hate sounding like a broken record, but I really don't understand why the first two levels couldn't have been put near the end of the episode, because it's levels like these that feel like an absolute cakewalk in comparison. And yeah, I know, I technically have every weapon in the game at this point and a steady amount of health and armor, but there has to be some kind of nice difficulty middle ground, right? I mean, seriously, even episode 1 Knee Deep in the Dead on Ultraviolence did a better job at difficulty scaling. Due to an oversight in the map's design, however, you can finish the map without having to get every single skull key, with the required skull key being the red one. Don't believe me? Here, watch this. I'll admit that my gameplay was a little sloppy there, but I think my point still stands. In all honesty though, I really do like this type of map design, since it proves a certain knowledge-based skill ceiling in where most first-time players of this level probably wouldn't know about the map exit skip in the first place. So anyway, it seems like the next map that we have to cover is Against the Wickedly. If the last couple of levels were anything to go by, this one will be an absolute breeze. All I have to do is pause the game and look up who designed this. Oh? Oh no. Please fucking God, I've had it so good up until this point. No, no, no. I'm not sure if there was anything that could have prepared me for what was ahead. Okay, so get this, right? The level starts off in this linear outdoor rocky mountain area, right? But please do not be fooled, because this is just John Romero lulling you into a false sense of security, because what follows is a non-stop war against all of the really well-placed 104 demons trying to bite your face off, all of the lava hurt floors, the lack of radiation suits early on in the level to bypass said hurt floors, the 28 of the 104 demons being hit-scan shotgunners, I repeat, the 28 of the 104 demons being hit-scan shotgunners, placed in areas like this fake wall over here so most players don't know where they're even getting shot from, and finally, the Cyber Demon at the end. All you would really need is to replace all of the imps in this level with Doom 2 Chain Gunners and Barons of Hell with Doom 2 Archviles, and this could honestly pass as a goddamn Platonia map. And honestly, I love this level. As someone who's been actively playing Classic Doom for about 6 years, it's really refreshing to be thrown a level that forces me out of my comfort zone, especially with this tall 4-direction lift in the center of the map, where if you take it, you're completely exposed to any and all enemy fire. But no, really, if episode 4 of Doom is like eating Taco Bell, and playing on Ultra Violence is like putting mild sauce on every Crunchwrap Supreme you eat, then E4M6 is like someone secretly putting several packets worth of Diablo sauce on your taco, and then by the time you realize, you're already past the point of no return. If I had a better analogy, you would be hearing it right now. I would go into more detail about just how much of an abysmal job I did taking out the Cyber Demon at the end of this level, but I think the file name for the recording speaks for itself. Once I finally got through E4M6, I think we could finally relax again. And hell followed. Or we could go by the map's original name, Chiron, a map that I started with only 10% health. Okay, so you might be asking yourself,
Sundree, why is there absolutely zero audio in your gameplay all of a sudden?
And if I may make a confession, I originally recorded the entirety of me playing through episode 4 in one sitting. So by the time I got to E4M7, I was already starting to doze off and zone out. So in an attempt to get my Zoomer brain-fried ADHD-ridden ass back to being engaged with what I was doing, I decided to hop on a Discord call with one of my friends while I was playing. During this call, I explained to them what video I was working on and generally talked about Classic Doom in general. Suffice to say, bringing your friends along for the ride is always a good time. But to compensate for the fact that I don't really want to include audio of me and my friends bantering in this video, I replayed through E4M7 twice just to capture the footage with a clean and simple audio track. Now, whether I actually decide to use that footage with the audio or not is entirely up to editing Sundree, rather than me, script writing Sundree. Truthfully, this map is one of the more forgettable ones in this episode, and it's a damn shame because as far as I'm aware, this is the only map in this episode designed by John Anderson, better known as Dr. Sleep. He was one of the pioneers in the Doom modding community in the 90s, and ironically enough, the same year Ultimate Doom released, Doom 2 The Master levels also released several months later. Now, the Master levels could be an entirely different video for a different day, but the thing to note is that he designed 5 of the 21 maps in that WAD. I know it's Dr. Sleep who made them because they're the few maps in the Master levels that are actually competently made. Tragically though, he passed away in 2018 due to pneumonia. I mean this with the utmost respect when I say that I really wish I had a better way to transition into talking about that, and a better way to transition out of talking about that without breaking the flow of this video and making everything awkward. To that end, I know for a fact that I'm far from being well equipped to tackle any heavy subjects on this channel, especially when I honestly have no right to be talking about them in the first place. I'm just happy that people still remember his work to this day, and his work on the Doom series is just fondly remembered by so many people, even all these decades later, So, with that being said, I really do like some of the architecture in this level, especially this area where the red skull key is located. The blend of marble textures with the orange skybox is honestly some good shit. The later part of the level is kinda hit or miss though. I'm not even sure what it is specifically that I don't like about it, but whatever it is, it's not really doing anything for me. For being the final non-secret level in Episode 4's lineup, it's not nearly as interesting nor balls-to-the-wall difficult as some of the other previous maps. I mean, that is unless you consider cowering behind a door while taking out hit-scan enemies from a safe distance as difficult. I'd like to imagine that my gameplay here accurately depicts the average playthrough of E4M8. I gotta say though, I genuinely do love this outdoor marble castle area. Dead trees on the indoor ceiling texture be damned. The entire map centers around this one large pillar surrounded by a vat of lava, where every side of the pillar you need to find a certain way to open up in order to progress with the level. Red key, yellow key, you get the drill. There's this final area at the map exit where you have to kill this spider mastermind in order to lower this wooden wall that reveals the map exit. And if you've seen my last Doom video, you know how piss easy these guys are to take down once you have the BFG. I really don't have to do this at this point, but I decide to game end the rest of the remaining demons in this level, even the pinkies hanging out down here. After all, I ended episode 4 with significantly more items and resources than I started out with. I'm assuming that the Spider Mastermind must have sent forth its legions of Hellspawn before our final confrontation with the terrible beast from hell. Now normally, this would be the part where I'd read the ending text word for word, but honestly, there's not much valuable information we can attain from this wall of text in terms of Doom's storyline. Aside from this being our introduction to the very idea of Doom Guy having a pet rabbit named Daisy, possibly being the same rabbit we see in episode 3's ending art. Honestly, I think this was written in either as a dumb joke or an explanation as to why there is a dead rabbit at the end of episode 3 in the first place. But why would id Software feel the need to explain the ending of the original Doom? Throughout the entirety of my original Doom review, and this one as well, the overall storyline of Doom has been something that I've barely bothered to even touch on, and there's a reason for that. it was never meant to be the main focus of the games. Yeah, sure, you could argue that the series slowly became more lore-rich than ever with the release of Doom Eternal, which, by the way, retconned the events of Doom 64 by making Doomguy wear his Doom 1 and 2 armor instead of his actual Doom 64 armor, which is made all the more bizarre by the fact that later during Doom Eternal's lifespan, a Doom 64 cosmetic got added into the game for the Doomslayer, and by the way, this is far from being the only oddity nor inconsistency with Doom's lore as a whole. But let's try and get back on topic a little here. The episode ends with what we could assume to be Doomguy holding what we can assume to be Daisy's head in front of the burning city from episode 3's ending arc, implying both here and from the ending text that this episode takes place sometime after the original 3 episodes, but directly before Doom 2 Hell on Earth. And at this point, I'm way too exhausted to figure out where to put both Sigil 1 and 2 into the Doom timeline. I haven't even played Sigil 2 yet, only the first one. Both the Sigil WADs are made by John Romero, so they're probably the most canon, non-official Doom games that we have. Well, not if you toss all of these into the equation, which again, I think could be an entirely different video for another day. But overall, I think Thigh Flesh Consumed is pretty solid for what it is. I hate using this word, but I also think that it's a little mid by today's standards. But I also believe that comparing Doom WADs made in the mid-90s to Doom WADs made in current year is like a hydrogen bomb versus coughing baby argument. However, there's still one level that we still haven't covered yet. Fear. Which, funny enough, might be the only level name in this episode that doesn't come from any Bible passage, probably because it was always intended to be just that, a secret bonus level. I think the reason why I didn't initially talk about this level earlier is because the only way to access it without cheating is via the obscure secret in E4M2, where you have to jump off of this area just right before the wooden wall here closes. Wooden wall, which by the way, you can't interact with to open like any normal door, meaning that even if you do know where in the map the secret is, accessing it is a whole nother ordeal entirely. But back to E4M9, it's probably one of the more interesting maps in episode 4, primarily because it doesn't follow a lot of the aesthetic trends that we've seen up until this point, like the usage of episode 3 textures. I mean, hell, from what it looks like, this level takes place in a UAC base, but I'm not sure I really like the overusage of the brown textures. It reminds me of the default wall, ceiling, and ground texture in Doom Builder, and I know that this level's creation predates Doom Builder by about a decade and a half, but again, seeing these brown and sand-colored textures together in a Doom map gives me the vibe that this level was made by an amateur. Which clearly isn't the case, because this map is probably one of the most fun maps out of the entire Thigh Flesh Consumed lineup. I really don't have anything else of value to say about it except that it's at least worth playing through once. And hey, you only need like one skull key to reach the map exit. And I think we're done. That's all of the levels in the Ultimate Doom Episode 4 Thigh Flesh Consumed dealt with. Now I can rest easy knowing that my initial Doom review I made last year has some semblance of closure. In summary, I think that Thigh Flesh Consumed is a very interesting part of Doom's overall legacy to analyze in the grand scheme of things. After all, id Software was still a pretty small development studio, so everyone had to know a bit about doing everything, and by the time the Ultimate Doom hit store shelves in '95, id Software were already hard at work on the development of Quake. And hey, I might consider reviewing Quake at some point down the line, but for now, I already got a couple of games lined up for me to review. If you liked the review and want to see me do more, by all means, subscribe to my nerd emoji head ass. After all, I've already accepted that the path I'm going down is going to be a long one, but who knows? I might be able to meet some cool people along the way. Alright, I seriously have to get going, so catch you next time.
Sorry,